Okay, I think I've started this. I've added Dylan.
Hello.
A few minutes to just get stuff started. Yep. Just the Discord UI's changed a bit, so I just need to get myself situated here. I'm going to add a bunch of the dev team in. Sorry, I'm having to go through and manually do this. I feel like I'm going to accidentally add someone in here.
We won't tell anyone that if they requested to speak right now, you'd probably accidentally just invite them in.
Yeah.
Please don't make me speak. Too late.
Did I get all the Rockworks people?
Rogan. I think so. Who's missing?
If I missed
J-Rod?
anyone, yeah, where's J-Rod?
I see J-Rod sneaking in the background, lurking.
Oh, and we need to get our mascot region. He's going to bot people when they're naughty.
Hello.
Oh man.
Oh, I got Simon. Awesome. And definitely when we take questions as well from some of the folks, we'll invite from the community. We'll definitely invite them through. Can anyone see if the stream's going okay?
It's working for me.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep. Confirm.
Perfect. So what we were going to do, and this is a bit of a brief for the team members as well. We're actually, so Liam is going to centralize a bunch of the questions that come up in the Slack thread, just so that people can keep commenting, stuff like that. So we'll try and have some of our folks on the various different, like Twitch streams and stuff like that, pulling in any questions. So feel free to be posting questions. And we'll chuck them in the Slack. So that you know, for Stefan and Jamie, if you want to answer any of the questions and you just want to look in that Slack thread as we go through. But I thought we could do a bit of an overview of where we're at. Jamie or Stefan, if you guys want to show off anything as well, I think you'll be able to stream to the stage as well.
Currently, I'm not permitted.
Got it. I don't know how to do that. How do I? Oh, I nearly timed you out. It might be because I'm already doing it. More options. I just don't want to have like 1,000 people, including literal rocket scientists, judging my ability to pilot a spacecraft. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess I wanted to start by sort of showing off where we're at with some of the progress. Maybe Jamie, Stefan, you guys could roll through some of what you've been doing in terms of like slowly layering in physics and maneuver nodes and stuff like that. And feel free to stream and show off or just berate me into showing off the thing that you want to show. And once we've kind of covered off on some of that stuff, then maybe we could get into questions and stuff like that.
Sounds good. You want to start, Dean, or you want one of us to start?
I'm sort of starting. I was just kind of showing off some of where we're at. So I just wanted to kind of show off some of that. I guess the seamlessness is something that I'm really particular on, which people are probably sick of hearing me say that. Just the idea that you can go from, say, the moon directly to the Earth without loading screens, without performance problems and stuff like that has been something that is very important. if any of the brutal guys are here or want to talk about any of the brutal changes or new stuff as well, welcome to share that. Anything you want to say at this stage, Jamie or Stefan?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk through a little bit of physics stuff if you want to go follow the rocket, maybe. All right, so I think I wasn't even on this Discord, I think, when the last one of these was done. So I got to talk about a little bit what we've been doing, which was when I joined the team back in December, we basically had a bunch of the foundational Kepler stuff done. So it's basically, in KSP terms, that's everything on Rails, just kind of happily floating around the solar system. You could zoom through at, a million years a second or whatever, and watch all the planets spinning around. One of the first things I did was add this little rocket, which was at that point just a sphere, and then Dean gave it a nice little Apollo CSM makeover here. The basics of what's been implemented so far is some Newtonian physics in terms of thrust. So we have a little hard-coded engine on this thing right now that allows you to thrust forward, change your delta V, actually change your orbit. And then quickly after that, I implemented the basics of rotation. And these are both, as Dean was saying, in a sort of a seamless way. So what happens is we're sort of propagating all the positions and everything using Kepler. So it's just on Rails. And then as soon as the instant you hit any of the thruster buttons, which are controlled right now with WSAD, or if you hit the engine key, you'll immediately switch into Newtonian physics. In fact, if you look up in the upper left corner in the statistics menu, you can see there's this man in charge field. Right now it says Kepler. As soon as Dean touches one of the controls, that'll switch to Newton whenever physics is active. And so that's the instantly switching between Rails and on Rails and off Rails, basically, as we're going through. So we have both RCS rotation and translation working. We have engine working, like main engine working. You can see there's some issues with some types of orbits in Escape. We're working on that stuff. The other thing that we implemented, which was on a developer updates a while ago, is sort of seamless rotation through time warp. So no matter whether you're on Rails or not, the rocket right now will actually continue to rotate past that, and that's like whether or not that ends up in the final game is totally up to us, but we're totally capable of doing that, which is nice. I guess the main stuff on the physics side that's been done so far, there's still tons more to do in terms of like being able to launch from the planet, go up to the moon and stuff like that, which is all coming next. But I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
Anything you wanted to add on that, Jamie? Oh, hold on. We got Felipe's
What?
here.
Oh, add him in.
Did that work? Yeah. Sorry, Felipe. Can someone? Is it only me who can add people? Sorry, you carry on, Jamie.
Hi. Yeah, sorry, I was about to ask how I got in. Yeah.
Adding stuff in. So yeah, I'm curious as to what that escape error was, because I didn't think there were any errors anymore. Boo-hoo. That's my life. Yeah, I think as was alluded to by Stefan, the Kepler simulation is there. Built all that prior to Christmas. We've got maneuvers happening now. They've been happening for a while, actually. Been trying to weed out all the bugs. I thought we'd got most of them, so I don't know what you did just before, Dean, but that'd be interesting to see again. I wasn't really watching what you were doing. And I've been working on being able to plan your maneuvers a bit differently. So I have been working on it, it's not finished, so we can show where it's up to, but it's not going to work. If you want to go from, say, an orbit around Earth to, say, Mars, then right now, traditionally, I guess in KSP, etc., you would create a maneuver on your orbit around Earth and then play with it forever until you finally got an intercept with Mars. But what I've been working on is actually creating a maneuver on the parent body's orbit. So, for example, you're orbiting Earth, you could create an orbit around from Earth's orbit to go to Mars, and then move it to your actual orbit around Earth, and it would automatically calculate all that for you. It's not quite working yet, but it's close. So you can actually create one right now and manipulate it and everything and find the intercept. But when you click to move it, there's still some math errors happening. So it doesn't actually move it correctly and you end up with a maneuver that's not quite the same. But we're getting there. Another thing I've been doing is, if you're following a ship, for example, Dean, and rocket or whatever, you should see in the menu now next to the nav ball.
I'll need to load it back up.
Okay.
Because I think it got an exception with this thing.
Rocket. Yeah. Okay.
I'll reload it back up.
Smelling interstellar travel.
Why don't you show it off? If you give it a go, so you should be able to run it and then just click the share your screen. I really hope it will.
Assuming I haven't got any errors right now because I'm in the middle of stuff. Let's see.
Yeah, I was part way on doing terrain shadows, and I was like, okay, so I stashed my changes.
I need to do that, so I'll have to stash. Hang on, and I'm on the test system, so no pretty graphics. Hang on, I'll just swap it around.
You feel like a question while he loads it up?
Yeah.
I mean, a question for Dean, but
where's Blackrack? He's probably in bed, whoever asked, because like he lives in France. What's the time there? Middle of the night. So I doubt we're going to get Blackrack on this stream, for those who are asking. There, I answered a question.
So were you able to stream, Jamie?
I'm trying to start it again now with the actual main system, because I had it on the test one.
Stefan, did you want to stream? You can try if you want.
Yeah, sure. Just starting the game now. You wanted to show off the parent maneuver stuff, Jamie?
Yeah, the screen share in Discord's not working for me. Oh, surprise,
okay.
Surprise.
Yeah, just wait until the game pops up here.
So yeah, while they're getting ready, so basically where we're at is we wanted to, you've probably seen me say this a whole bunch, but we wanted to approach all our problems kind of from first principles. So Stefan, joined us 12 years at SpaceX, and I think it's fair to say, like me, wanted to kind of look at seeing how much of the physics we could do ourselves, basically so that we could know exactly where stuff is happening. Like people talk a lot about the Kraken or Clang and space engineers, and personally I think a lot of it relates to how you bind in an API with what you're doing, which is sort of one of the things we wanted to do with Brutal in general. Like Stefan can go and look and see exactly where anything is happening. He can go look at the render stack. He can see where something's getting called exactly. So we can turn stuff on and off and hook stuff in. So as Stefan is moving something between being on rails or off, he knows exactly when that's happening. Like exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a big headache back in KSB. The order of operations of everything is entirely kind of hidden from you, right, in Unity, because you have all of these behaviors updating, and it's kind of undefined when things happen in relation to one another. Like you can set what happens if something is supposed to happen before something else, but it's not an explicit order. You're just kind of hinting at things you want to happen in a specific sequence, and even then, like, it's a kind of a pain in the ass to work with. Yep.
Yeah, I guess our advantage here is we get to choose. We don't have to worry about Unity's execution. I'm upside down. That's why I'm confused. I'm streaming. Can you see it? I'm assuming everyone can see my screen.
We got you.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, so I'm not very good at driving this. Here we go. Well, I mean, here's where I'm just creating a maneuver. There you go. I encountered the moon. Ta-da. We've got some issues with culling distances, but we're getting closer to fixing that.
I was actually thinking we can just turn off that culling. I think I added that
just
culling
draw
a
it.
while ago. Yeah,
Yeah.
like performance-wise, it's not a problem. So I think for now, I was just thinking about that before. I was like, we should just turn that off.
Yeah.
I think I provisioned for like 500,000 orbit lines, so like it's not a problem. Sorry, carry on.
Oops. Yes, I've added this. Oh, this is my work in progress. This is very much a work in progress. So I can create maneuvers from one body to another. I've got to fix this. It's actually running on the main thread at the moment, so I've got to put it into a worker thread. But it's easier to debug while it's on the main thread. So the idea is, calculate me a transfer and then create me a maneuver, and there you go. But it's not quite right because it's not actually hitting the target. But I'm working on it. I'm getting there, getting closer. So that's what that one is. And then the other one is, we haven't really decided like how the player gets to use this stuff, because I'm thinking something along the lines of, initially you want to learn how things work, so you probably don't want to have the automatic maneuver planner available straight away, which is what this thing is. But what you can do, what I've been working on, is like I can create a maneuver here actually on Earth's orbit like this, and then set up my actual intercept. I'm not going to actually find the intercept, right? But then, yeah, I can just tell this to.
Oh, this is wild. I heard you guys talking about this. This is crazy cool. Sorry, carry on.
Click this, and then it moves it onto my actual ship's maneuver, ship's orbit. As you can see, it's not, the math is still not quite right. I'm going to switch it over, hopefully over the weekend. We were trying to use geometry to figure it all out, but it's not working properly. So I think what I'm going to do is convert it over to use my Lambert solution solver that I've got, that I've written in here.
Like, I'm seeing this for the first time now, but then how do you get to that maneuver when you add it back? Like, would it be possible then to have it generate like another maneuver, which is your escape burn, so you can like land yourself on a maneuver on an orbit that more or less matches like that orbit? Because like, that's actually really cool.
I think that's basically what it's doing. If I understand you, it's like it's taking the orbit from the Earth and mapping it onto an equivalent orbit on your parking orbit. So you'll just
so I clicked that button already, and it's now moved it from Earth onto my actual ship's orbit. So if I zoom in, you can see now it's actually part of my ship's orbit. Yeah.
Actually, that makes total sense, because you, in theory, have a heliocentric orbit. It's just a squiggly version of the Earth's orbit.
Yep. Yeah, basically you create the transfer orbit here. This is just one idea that we had. This was Stefan's idea, actually. Get my encounter here, and then I can just sell it to make this my transfer flight plan, and
that's
it
cool.
can just calculate back, because basically it's working. This maneuver is actually what my delta V needs to be when I leave the sphere of influence, and then we can just work back from that to the parking orbit. And I'm sure all the scientists on here will go, that
makes sense. And then like your escape maneuver is just the remaining delta V for you to like,
get to the sphere of influence at that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The third thing I'm going to do, which I'm still just waiting for some of the brutal guys. I think there's only Chris is not here, is he? No, he's hiding. Who's working on being able to have the multi-cameras stuff, so that we could actually, the third idea would be to actually focus a camera, say on Mars, so I can see where my maneuver's going, whilst I'm over here manipulating it, kind of thing. And then, of course, I built this little thing here where you can actually change the delta V.
And that's very possible. We just have to decouple a few things. at the core level, it's only about an hour's worth of work for us to get essentially a version of camera to render the texture. But the problem is there's a few things that are bound around there being one renderer. So the planet renderer and actually I think it's only the planet renderer is really our main problem there at the moment.
Yeah. Now
I went partway through the shadows thing before, but yeah.
I've got really crappy frame rate because I just realised I'm running in debug mode. Debug mode is not
Dirty,
good for
gross.
dirty. So don't freak out about my frames here. That's
Release
'cause I'm
only, force push all the time. That's me.
Yeah, I'm running in debug, but I think what else I mean? That's mostly what I've been working on. Yeah, the maneuvers.
I think one of the things that's been very good is we haven't had to make any like what I'd call concessions. So in order to achieve a lot of this, we've been able to stick with our approach of using worker threads. So I think we call them orbit solver, but they do a bit more than just the orbit solving now. But when we take stuff off rails to apply the physics, we're actually doing that on a thread that's working sort of one thread ahead, I guess you could say, and that gives us a whole bunch of benefits in terms of performance, and really will allow us to have thousands and thousands of craft that will be able to do stuff. You'll be able to, allow you to have your vessels being able to apply force even when you're not looking at them, stuff like that. I don't know, Stefan, did you want to explain any of that? Because you've been able to get everything to work with the orbit solvers.
Yeah, it's basically that. Just like right now, I think actually right now we're even doing a lot more simply than we could be. I have some crazy ideas on how to go even crazier with the multi-threading, but right now we basically we have a few threads that sort of churn through all the different objects in the game and update them, whether it's physics or the capital orbit solving or any of that stuff. And yeah, I think we could, like, given that because we control all the data, we control the entire frame update loop, we can kind of do whatever we want there. And I think we can get really crazy with the multi-threading to really make use of all those cores.
Yeah, we're only barely touching what we could do multi-threading. Like I said, a lot of the maneuver stuff I've been doing are still running on the main thread. I haven't decided yet whether we put in some more workers or just use the ones we've already got.
Yeah, so I think we've been using our sort of worker approach on a few of our projects pretty well, and the advantage of that is you get the benefits of it not being multi-threaded, but the benefits of it being multi-threaded as well. The rest of the code can kind of treat things as being done. Yeah, it just requires a little bit of stuff. Maybe we should start going through people's questions. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I mean, what else could that's mostly what we've been up to, right?
I've got one here actually specifically for what we were looking at on screen there. Question from Acacia: what can you tell me about the stars in the background? Are they individually rendered?
I can take that one. So at the moment, the way it works is when you boot up the game, it loads binarized star data, and actually you can make your own star data using your own delimited stuff, so end users can actually generate the stuff. So it's kind of an example of what's really awesome about Brutal. Because we're talking directly with the GPU, we can do a lot of funky stuff. You probably find Pleiades actually. That's usually what I look for. But so when the game starts up, it actually loads in. So you can see the star sprites. There's 81,000 of them on the left there. And we load that data in as a normal, and then the fourth value is a packed value that contains the size and the color. So they are separate instances on the GPU, and we can actually change individual as one. So if we wanted to move them around as a parallax effect, we can. We can do it. We've definitely been designing things so that we can layer in different solar systems. There's nothing inherent about it being, say, heliocentric, because everything is drawn, I guess, relative to everything else. I saw someone we probably shouldn't just be randomly pulling questions out of chat, right? There was a lot of good questions in there.
No, I've got some other good ones here. That one's just applicable to what you're looking at. Do you want me to read out the top one we had?
Yeah, we can go to the top.
Yeah. There have been talks about making the physics engine fully custom instead of relying on libraries like Jolt. Has this decision been made yet, or is it still up in the air?
Yeah. So basically that's what you're seeing. So this is all custom. And I don't want to answer for Stefan, but we're kind of approaching all the problems from first principles. So actually, if you go to the moon, Jamie, if you maybe fly up and down to the moon, that's a good example to show. That was one of the first places we approached the problem. You can use Alt and then simulation. Oh, sorry, universe. Alt, universe, and then go to. I added that in.
That's what I was looking for, because it all changed after you did this little menu.
Luna. Yep,
there we go. I was trying to middle click them before, and they weren't.
Yeah. So yeah, at the moment it's all custom, and we'll go for that as far as we need to, and then on top of that we will change it if needed. But this was a good example that how the terrain works with these spherical billboards, of approaching the problem from first principles. And actually we've been talking with Lynx, who's here, who's just started looking at how we prettyify this a bit. Yeah, but actually before I get distracted, which I tend to do, Stefan, is there anything you wanted to say about our approach to physics?
Yeah, I think like you said, everything here is all hand implemented right now, and there's really not a reason not to for the kind of stuff we're doing yet. I think the open questions, I think, on us to figure out what the most appropriate way to solve them are for collision, and then for sort of like soft, like flexible bodies for whoever we want. That's a whole discussion that has to be had about if we want to do that and how we want to do that. And those may end up using some kind of library stuff, although I have a bunch of thoughts on how we might not be able to do that. But really, we just want to choose the most effective thing. So if that's a tool off the shelf, we'll take it. If it's a right around thing, we'll take it. No decisions have been made so far, but we're open to not using anything if we don't need to, I would say.
Yeah, so one thing that's in my head is we might end up using Jolt or something for imposters. So when your camera is real close there and you've got your little kittens floating around, or they drop a tool and we want the tool to bounce into something, we might use imposters there, where basically we have Jolt and we use it as like a physics solver to do very detailed collision. Think of it about like a ballet. I remember going to watch a ballet once, and I noticed the guys were walking around picking up the girls, and it was all just very weird. And so if you think about Jolt as being like that, we use Jolt to pick up objects and move them around because we want a very specialized use case. Whereas most of what we're doing, we can layer in ourselves into the simulation, which means then we can clip that in exactly where we want it and have full control. So maybe actually, Jamie, if you go around the rocket and then if you go to the rocket and then you can use the Alt, if you we need to untrain Jamie from the rocket, and then if you push C. Yeah, and then if you use if you get it doing a rotation and then time warp, it'll just show people if you like push your WASD or whatever.
You can speed it up a couple ticks to make it go faster.
And then increase the simulation. So you bunch it up heaps. So you'll see basically it's really smooth. It's beautifully smooth because it's completely coupled in ourselves. So if we went to the code, you can see where it is. We can pass in different delta steps. So we don't have to make any concessions there at all, like zero. There's no, it's sort of hard to I guess explain how important that is at layering that in.
I guess if you just wanted to add I guess a bit of a, like, if you're familiar with Unity, like a bit of an analog here, like so far, like we've got completely like custom and deterministic kinematics. So kinematics in the sense of like velocity, angular momentum, stuff like that. Like And so that's already like half of a physics engine, I would say. The other half is collisions. And I think when you say like imposters, like in Jolt and stuff like that, it's the Unity analog of that would be collision meshes, and to some degree like the physics scene in a way. But the key thing is that in a game like this, like the physics scene is extremely sparse, right? You have your own ship and maybe like the few objects around it that have been jettisoned or that you run into, or maybe a nearby other ship. But like, it's not the same as a game where you have like, I don't know, a pile of stacked building blocks in a rickety pile of rigid bodies, right? That's usually not something even you see in KSB or KitHack or KSA, and so basically the kinematics part is something that in KSP we trusted physics to do. We had to like do a number of tricks and shenanigans to keep it happy. But yeah, sorry, when you have dark zooms, it's just part of life. But yeah.
Maybe you keep streaming because it's fun to have going on in the background doing stuff. I'll see if I can run through a few more of these questions. Feel free to keep posting the questions in here, folks. Liam is pulling those questions through. There's actually not too many there. We should definitely make sure Liam, Dylan, Simon, and that keep pulling them out of the chat and chuck them in the thing. Someone asked, will it be Mac OS support? And if so, what would be the spec requirement? So our Brutal team, some of the team members actually use Macs. So by default, we have to support Mac. So the game has to be able to run in Mac so that they can continue to do their dev work. That doesn't mean to say, though, that we'd ship a Mac build. What we've tended to find is that supporting other builds increases our build time and all stuff like that. And then when we put out a build for that, we need to make sure that it works for it. It's other platforms is definitely something we can do. It's really more a question of how well a game does revenue wise, how whether we can support different platforms, because they're usually percentage points on, say, PC, at least for us. So that means that we yeah, it really comes down to how well it does. So with our game Stationeers, same thing. It's like a lot of people are like, oh, it'd be great if you did Linux or Mac, but it's really a question of how much it sells. Icarus, we actually found a company to do a console port, basically because Icarus sold well enough on PC that it made sense to do it on console. So I think the same thing applies for Mac OS. Another question from Benji. Will there be advanced orbit info, different reference frames, AN, DN nodes, targeting celestial objects? I feel it's been kind of mostly answered, but I don't know whether Jamie or Stefan wanted to cover any more on that.
Like this. Ascending node, descending
there you
node.
go. Yeah.
Target and the sphere of influence of the target is being displayed here. Yep.
I mean, there's heaps we can add, right?
There's heaps of stuff.
And MGUI, I mean, I love MGUI, and I don't want to turn this into me, an MGUI cult. But yeah, you know, there's a lot we can.
That actually reminds me. I've just written down. There's a whole bunch of stuff around setting the target.
Well, sign me up for the MGUI cult, by the way.
I need to add that.
Well, it makes it easy to move stuff around. That's one thing I really like. Was there anything anyone wanted to add on that one?
Just quickly on the reference frame stuff, I think the answer is yes. We have like a ton of ability to display stuff in different reference frames, and we'll continue to add those. I hear you just showing the attitude, but I think one thing that I personally am very find that was always a thing I wish I had in KSP was the ability to see your trajectory relative to the surface of a planet. So like if you're planning on, for example, going from the moon back to the Earth and you want to see exactly where you'll splash down, it was a little bit hard to do, but we should be able to do that very easily. So just say like click the button that says like show me relative to the surface of the Earth rather than the center of the Earth, and we should be able to see where your trajectory hits. Stuff like that I think we can do pretty easily, and that'll be great little additions.
I just realised I've hit my time bug, Stefan.
Duodex
Yep.
says we've seen some pretty graphics and nice performance and everything, but at least so far, hold on, my screen is being a bit weird. At least so far, the physics engine has only been working with a single little CSM module. Do you have plans for KSP style per part calculations or per vessel calculations? I think probably. So I mean, when you think about how physics works in general, and I guess, you know, physics is one of those things where people have tended to equate physics with physics, or the various SDKs that are used for stuff, because of that's how common it is in the game. But what we try and do is we try and break all of the parts down into their component, all the problems down into their component parts, and then solve those problems based on the best in class, or from first principles, how we want to approach it. So I think what a lot of people are getting confused about is they say, oh, we're just doing a rendering or whatever of the CSM, but that's not really true. We're dealing with the Kepler and Newtonian solvers for the vessel as we would, and there's really not a lot of difference if there was heaps of parts on that vessel or not. Like Stefan, I think you were saying, so you've already got a rudimentary fuel thing in there, for example, in mass. You sort of had to, right?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, like, right now the CSM is in KSP terms basically a single part, but it's the calculations that we do are not going to be that different for multiple parts. So right now the CSM, it has mass properties, like it has a mass, it has a propellant mass, it has the moments of inertia. All the thrusters fire from the correct positions and have, you know, individual forces and everything. So there's tons of the real stuff going on. You'll have to sort of do a bunch of summed up calculations for all the different parts, obviously, when you end up having a multi-part rocket, which of course we will. Yeah, like I think 100% we will be doing all that stuff, and it's not like we have to throw what we've just done away when we go to multiple parts. This is the base, and it will integrate more and more complexity on top of it.
Yeah, so this is per vessel calculations already, and then it's not hard for us to pass anything off, or wrap in per part stuff as well. So parts, you know, will definitely be able to call various different things at different times in the frame or different events and stuff like that. So that's not a problem.
There's actually 4 ships here at the moment that I've got in the game, all being simulated. Yeah, I think people are are thinking too much about how KSP did part physics and using PhysX and using joints and multiple rigid bodies. I don't know that that's the road we're going to take. We will end up with our own idea on how to do that, I think. Yeah, because we're not constrained by Unity's physics.
Yeah, I think one thing that I can. Yeah, no, I think the one thing I can add there is, if one thing I learned is that, like, you having a bunch of parts in the vehicle is not by any means necessarily tied in with the idea of having each part be its own rigid body. So they can all be components of a single rigid body vehicle until something breaks off, or you jettison something. So you don't need to have each part be modeled as its own rigid body with physics joints connecting them together. That's that was the solution that KSP had, because it was the quickest way to get there at first. And it became something that we battled with for the duration of the project, because it was it was an overly simplistic solution that gave us very little control. And even in KitHack, like, I already didn't do that. So KitHack doesn't have wobbly physics anymore because we don't do the joints. We have an internal stress simulation that's separate. So we know now that that's definitely possible to do. And yeah, so you shouldn't think of, like, parts in the vehicle as being their own rigid bodies and connected to the rest of the vehicle by joints. It's something that can be definitely worked differently.
So I think we've definitely smashed that one. Next one, will the in-game solar system be our solar system with Earth, Mars, etc., or will there be a fictional system like Kerbal? So one of the things we really want to do, or at least I really want to do, is try and involve experts from the community. So I mean, there's a few people joining the dev team already, super skilled from the community. My current suggestion to the dev team is that later on, once we've got the alpha build available and we see if we can fund the game just on contributions, then we could actually go to the community and put out a proposal, same with a bunch of different things, and say, design us a solar system that's Earth-like, but because if you, I'm sure I don't need to tell anybody in the KSP community, the quality of some of the planet and system mods is just incredible. I mean, the quality of a number of the mods is just insanely good. So that's the current plan. One of the reasons that we use the solar system is just because there's a lot of ready access data, and I really wanted to make sure that mods like RSS would be supported, although they will require pretty grunty PCs to run because you need a lot of textures to represent solar system objects properly. So yeah, we will go out and we'll get a team to make really high quality solar system for us. And my suspicion is that the best people to do that will be hiring members of the community to do it, which is, why we've already talked to a number of really good community members. I would call them third-party developers, not modders. So like Lynx is here, I would call you a third-party developer, not a modder. So I don't know if you had anything you wanted to say about some of the early looks that you've had with how we're approaching stuff.
Well, I mean, sure. For the record, I am incredibly new onto the team, so I've only had a few there's a cat in front of me now. I've only had a few days to really dig in and have a good look. There's a couple things that I've already pointed out that we could improve on, and I've had a pretty good. We've got a promising proposal for what we want to do with the terrain system as well, but I can't really reveal too much on that because we're still testing that out. I've still got to implement that in game. But when it comes to the actual planets and the planetary system, I think we're aiming for a pretty solid and robust terrain system and all the bells and whistles that come with that. And then I'll be helping that team that Dean mentioned to implement whatever planets they choose to make.
I just love the Jovian moons. Sorry, I'm really
just found a moon eclipse and I'm just hypnotized. Yeah.
I'm trying to smash through all the questions too because there's a lot of really good questions. So hopefully we're not covering them too quickly.
That's Io, by the way, that's casting his shadow on Jupiter.
That's actually a really interesting thing because it highlights what's really cool with Brutal. So that's not a shadow in the traditional sense.
Right, yeah.
That data is added as a uniform that's available to every shader. And so it was something I wanted to try with Stationeers when I was taking what was the original prototype of this with Brutal, and we thought, okay, well, we can't take on KSP2. But we were able to actually make this work. And then BlackRack was able to take that uniform and integrate it with his shaders. So it's really cool. It's like not a traditional shadow buffer. And so it's very cheap. It doesn't necessarily do it exactly as it would in real life, but just it's just a really good example of corners we can cut, I guess.
It's masking, right? The the volume of late atmosphere, I guess.
Yeah, but actually just using math. There's no text, there's no depth.
There's no shadow map. It's not mapped shadow. It's a shadow, but not using the traditional shadow map techniques that Unity, again, restricts you to. You can't have shadows in Unity outside of using the built-in shadow mapped ones, or rewriting all of the shaders that will possibly come in contact with it. So yeah, this is one of the really cool things about writing all of your own shaders. is that like it sounds kind of terrible at first that you would have to, but then
It's
you
also
get to do stuff like
insanely
this.
performant. Insanely performant. So another good question. We've actually already answered this one, but I'll cover off on it, which was how does the game handle burning over long time warps? You mentioned Kepler is very stable at high speed, but given that physics are Newtonian while burning, I wonder if it has the same stability. Stefan, did you want to give a 10-second answer to that?
Very quick, very short answer is absolutely yes. And the reason is that we can basically substep. So we'll choose a stable physics time step that doesn't have to be the same as the frame rate. So when you're going at crazy high like simulation speeds, you can do multiple steps during the burn to keep it all nice and stable. And we can choose different steps for different physics as well. So yeah, 100% we'll be able to do long night like burns at time warp that are not going to freak out and like glitch out.
So there's this is a good one that's been asked quite a lot. I still need to update the FAQ. I've been really bad about doing that. Which was you're going to release to Steam release at some point. So one of my big aims for this project, and this is definitely a personal one for me, but I think it's shared by a few team members. I really think that it is totally possible that someone could be inspired playing this game. And some of the first people to land on other worlds could actually be inspired by games like this. I know Felipe has been humbled many times by meeting people who are like, I don't know, create rockets or something, and I first played KSP. Is that a fair
It's
statement?
insane, dude. It's absolutely surreal. There's no what I say is there's no neural pathway in the human brain to process learning that somebody like that kind of thing is happening. It's like it's unfathomable in the literal sense. Like I can't process it properly. It's absolutely surreal.
So I'm also not happy with how we make and do games in general. We have games like Stationeers, which we lose money on, and it's a very long conversation about it. But so I don't want to get into all the massive details. We might do a proper big write-up on it. But my belief is we should at least try to fund the game based purely off contributions, and then make the game completely free and distribute it via a sort of safe torrent system or something. But certainly make it that basically people can just copy the game, so that if we go to schools and we say, hey, here's the game. They don't have to install Steam and get a whole bunch of hentai games shoved at them straight away. But the kids can also take that game home. I don't really like the idea of having an educational version, because I think that puts a barrier. I think that games are really good at inspiring people into something. And so if we can inspire a child or even a big child like me to get interested in space and science, that should continue at home, and it should happen regardless of anything else. I don't want to derail the conversation. I have a lot of issues with how Steam works in general, but yeah, that's the short summary for it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like you're right and totally right about the educational thing. And it's also like I will say also that an educational game, a real educational game, is a game that isn't like ostensibly educational. It's not trying to like make you learn stuff in the guise of being a game. It's a game that asks you to do something that to be good at, you have to go off and want to learn something. It's a game that's kind of accidentally educational is the best type of educational game, because you find yourself having to know this stuff if you want to get any better, or not. Like you can not learn anything and continue like not being able to do stuff like properly, but it's a game that just like drives you to like do your own research and learn about stuff because it's the best way to get better, but yeah.
This is a good one. Is this game going to be? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jamie.
Just realised we're going to tell BlackRock about the the mountains sticking out through.
No,
the
that's
clouds.
me. It's entirely me.
Oh, that's your
Black Rat
fault.
did everything.
Ah.
The mountains weren't big enough, so I like increased them by heaps. And then while Black Rat was on
got it.
holiday, I changed the size of a whole bunch of stuff. So that's 100% my fault, completely. Poor Black Rat goes on holiday, and I just mess up all this stuff. He's so nice about it.
Oh look.
Well,
there's New
to be fair,
Zealand.
I don't just do it to Black Rat. I do it to you guys as well. Is this game going to be more like KSP, where it in and of itself is a full game, but most people will probably have mods? Or is it going to be more like, and this is really funny, but like a Gmod like game, where it's more of a bland game that is made to have mods to add all the real meat? I think I'm going to DM Gary Newman and say, dude, why did you make such a bland game? But no, it's a good question. So we're definitely making a full game. It probably seems in some ways like we're talking about mods and stuff like that a lot. Part of it is because I started modding and I became like a third-party developer and then a developer. There's a real like continual spectrum between them, and people see them as very and or. So one thing I've sort of regretted a lot about the studio is we haven't had particularly good mod support. So this game and many of our other games, we're doing sort of hard swings towards modding support. So when I talk about things being moddable and that, it's really about making sure that we give a vision to the games that that I really want us to have, rather than saying we're going to make a bland kind of platform and then have the stuff on top of that. So I think it's going to be the first one. You know, we want to make a fully fledged game. We'll pay community members, like third-party developers. We'll bring them onto the team to best in class all the stuff we need to do, while making sure that we can fully support the even further mods, because we really want to make what I'd call forever games, where the game can massively outlast us.
I was just showing the transition of the clouds there, because
and there's still, I think Black Rat still has some work to do on that. We keep
but I noticed when it's going really fast, it looks really weird. So I thought I'd slow it down and just show people, like, if you're going at a reasonable speed, it looks okay. It's just because I was going too quickly through the transition.
This is a question about Brutal, which is the framework. We try and use the word framework, not engine, for making all this, which is called Brutal. It's named Brutal very deliberately because it is a bit brutal to use. It's designed to be very deliberate, so you can't accidentally render anything. What we did, the simplest way I'd describe it, is we took Vulkan and we mapped it directly to C#. And I believe we have probably the most complete mapping of Vulkan to C# directly. There's no real stuff in the way. We also focused very heavily on what's called an interop layer. So how, say, a C++ library talks to C# for memory and performance benefits. And, you know, we grabbed the latest versions of C#. I think we're already talking about .NET 10. So we get to introduce a lot of stuff very quickly there. So will we open source it or release it later down the line? Spicy opinion time. I like open source, but I do think that a lot of things happen when you have one or a couple of sort of pig-headed people drive something forward. I'm also a big fan of that Henry Ford quote, "You can have any color you want as long as it's black." So one of the reasons I think we've achieved a lot with Brutal so far is we pushed kind of to a singular aim around performance and stability. So we sort of swat away a lot of things in the name of that sort of singular aim, which gives the team the Brutal team a very focused direction to go. I personally think that if we made Brutal paid for, we will end up, whatever you do there, it would end up the same as Unity Unreal, and I'm not personally happy with either of them for various different reasons. So I don't quite know how to do that, but that's one of the things I want to figure out how to do it, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to smash through these questions. Any chance I could get a peek at the spherical billboarding in wireframe mode? Do you want to do that, Jamie? Maybe go to the moon. It's probably the easiest way to check it out. So if you do that, and then you go to the moon. And yeah.
Or if you want to stream it, Dean. But
yeah, I can stream it.
Because I've got to restart it.
Watch me get massively distracted. Every time I stream, I'll see something and then get distracted.
I just saw a question about integrators fly by. I'll just answer quickly. The current integrator is not symplectic. It's an explicit Runge code integrator at the moment, but there's very little stopping us from changing it. It's just the one I chose for the day because it's easy.
So if I turn off spherical billboarding, so now the sphere is not rotated towards us. So basically when we start the game, we make, procedurally, we make a bunch of spheres and they're defined in data. So that means that modders can, or third-party developers can make their own libraries, and each celestial can be bound to different batches of these. And so that gives you a lot of flexibility. And then these spheres get deformed based on a height map texture, and then they get rotated towards the camera. So it's kind of like a billboard, like that you'd normally use, but using a sphere. It was actually a pretty complicated problem to deal with. So I've turned off the billboarding here so that it's not getting rotated, but you can see as you're zooming in, it's starting to condense the density in different ways. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly performant. Yeah, and actually a lot of the idea of this was by watching Felipe's Unite presentation about how terrain was approached, but then trying to really approach that problem from first principles. So really starting at that ground level and saying, what are you going to do? Simon, you're there, right?
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add, so when you said it's defined in data, just to clarify, that doesn't mean it's like a reference defined in data to these meshes. The meshes are, you define what attributes you want it to have, and it's generated when you launch the game, correct?
Yes.
So it's I just cut myself. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool process to, I don't know, when we first started doing this part of it, like this is one of the first things we ended up doing. Like Dean said, just taking a first principles approach. Like we didn't really, we had watched Felipe's video a number of times. I'd watched a few things in the past about a few things in the past about like how you tackle this problem. Like before we even started this, I looked into this a lot. But when we actually went to do this, it was me and Ryan just went and sort of a whiteboard and just started, I don't know, throwing around like kind of off the wall ideas on how you might, how we might want to approach it without sort of any external references. And this is what we came up with. And then we tried it out and compared it against other things. And that's sort of, and we did end up doing this. It seemed like a kind of a crazy idea, and it did have a lot of problems that we had to solve, hard problems. But that's
the billboarding was very challenging,
very difficult
of gimbal lock and stuff like that. Trying to get something to consistently face, but we threw that onto some of the brutal team members, and they suffered through it.
We came up with difficult ideas, and then made other smart people solve it.
This implementation is very similar to the first implementation of KSP terrain, where before we had the quad tree subdivisions, we had a disk of mesh where like the concentration of vertices was like increased towards the center, and it was just set up to like follow you over the surface of the terrain, but always stay under like the where the view was, but masking the terrain. And in the KSP case, it was super simple, and it would just like follow you. And if you looked like in the distance, you would see like the terrain swimming, as it's called, like as the vertices landed on different parts of the height field. And you guys had to you managed to quantize it so it actually follows you, but it snaps. so that you don't see the
Yes, so
swimming.
you do get a bit of it, but part of that is because at the moment the data we're using to generate these spheres was designed for KSP scaled worlds, not the other ones. If I stream,
and just a note on that, so the it's not just quantizing. It was also, we had to think hard about, and there's no exact solution. Like, that's to be clear, there's no exact solution, but we had to think very hard about like how we lay out the vertices. So how that mesh is created and how the vertices are laid out is done in a way that makes it as possible to have as little swimming possible.
Right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So you snap it by some modular thing, but also trying to, if there is swimming, have it in places where it's not as noticeable and stuff.
Yeah.
yeah. So see here, I'm showing in the
sound
code
easy
here.
at all.
On a immediate mode basis, so every frame when we're rendering, we go and we grab the LOD mesh for that celestial. So different, at the moment we have only one mesh collection, but basically modders can, I say modders, but it's really developers, third-party developers on modders can go through and do kind of whatever they want.
Yeah, Dean, I've seen a lot of people asking the same question. Do you want to quickly show them the Townhall file? That's not the Townhall, the config file for a planet, so they understand, because I see a lot of people asking, how do we create a planet?
Yeah, so where's a good planet? Sedna. What was it? Someone was like, all my homies like Sedna here. So so we try and have a really good data approach, and I still mod a lot of games, and we've tended to pull a bunch of approaches from Space Engineers, Paradox Games, RimWorld, a whole bunch of games together. So you can see here, this is a terrestrial body planet. You can actually enter this semi-major axis or any distances using kilometers or AU. You can combine them together or however you want. Yeah, so this is kind of our data standard of how we do stuff, and we'll obviously put a lot of detail on this publicly as we get towards release. One of the reasons we haven't sort of published the STK of how to do all this yet is we're still changing it a lot as we go through. You can see I put a rudimentary system in here for, these are called locations, which will be pulled out later on. So there's like landmarks and mountains. This is all just test data to make sure everything's working. But yeah, we want to get just a really good layer in there for that stuff. Someone else can stream while we're talking if they want to show off cool stuff. If it switches between Rails and Newtonian physics, does that mean there will not be in-body simulation? So we were talking with someone very knowledgeable in this, and Stefan, you were saying it still remains possible that we could do that if we wanted, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, it's not a no. It's just not where we're pushing towards at the moment. And yeah, but there's nothing necessarily in the way of it. That might come down to, again, how much we raise through contributions and who we can assign to it and stuff like that. And you also said that even if we didn't do in-body, I mean, obviously that leaves room for modders too, but there is a possible sort of half solutions for us to do.
Yeah. We could do three bodies or something like that.
I think that end body is widely like, yeah, it's a term that is widely just thrown around in the KSP community to mean like Lagrange points, which are really the interesting bit you get out of end body integration.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean the rest of it, like in actual gameplay terms, is from experience noise. Like you're flying an interplanetary flight and everything is going according to plan, and you just see that your orbit is randomly drifting. Like if you don't know exactly which gravity influences are pulling you in which way, it just feels like it's just a bit annoying in terms of gameplay because you just
I was about to say exactly what you Yeah, exactly what Felipe's saying. He just stole it. I was about to say, be careful what you ask for. So, and body, you have to think of it from a like, the 80% of players' perspective. It's like it will just be an annoying feature to a lot of players. Right?
Stefan, do you want to stream while we're talking so people have
I
got something
think
to look at?
I think what people are asking for is Lagrange points, just like you said, Felipe, and that we don't have to implement full n-body physics to have them. So, yeah.
Dylan, also, so we're supposed to be doing cake for Simon soon. Do you reckon we could delay that? Simon, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Simon
I
and
just
Matt.
want to ask what the shipping policy on cake is so that I can get my cake too.
That's true. We'll just have
We
to
can
fly
ship
you
you-
back over here, Felipe.
Okay.
It's actually Simon's 5-year anniversary at the company, so
As
Simon's
long as there is
actually
cake, I
project
will
lead
fly down to
station.
New Zealand for cake.
So can we get cake in chat for Simon, who's a fantastic project lead and programmer? We probably wouldn't even have KSA if it wasn't for the work that Simon did initially.
I'm certainly
so I'm
hoping
gonna
an
try and-
Uber's going to rock up with a piece of cake for me in a second. In an Uber? No? No cake?
We'll see if we can smash through some more of these questions. That's a really cinematic shot there, Stefan. You can push F2 as well if you want to toggle the UI quickly on and off.
And I can't navigate.
That's true. You didn't have to do that. It was more just in case you didn't know. Are the cloud logs accurate to the volumetric clouds? Yes, they are. It uses a texture layer. I know that BlackRack has a lot of plans, as I'm sure you understand, of things that he wants to do there. So you'll see a lot more dynamic stuff and weather type stuff coming later on. Will the game be DRM free? Yes. The idea is that if you have two kids who are, well, one kid who's playing the game and they're telling their friend about the game, then we want that person to be able to just copy the game or give them a USB with it on. I'd really love for us to make an actual like box set with a USB and a couple of books in it, one science book and maybe a small story book that's written by a science fiction author or something. And I just think it would be really cool if that's something a kid doesn't need connected to the internet and they can just take home. I really, really, really strongly think education is really good at teaching people stuff, but video games like this can really inspire kids and bigger kids as well. And I think that being take-homeable is really important. I am a software engineer working on a low-level scientific software, and I and many other former KSP fans similar to me would love to contribute. Is there any intention to make some or all the project open source? I kind of covered that before. Not really. We tend to like to bring people in, partially because I really try and drive projects forward. I think if there's going to be something written on my headstone, I hope it's get stuff done, the stuff replaced with another S word. And so we try and really push things forward, and I think having an internal team that's well resourced and fairly paid, I think is kind of important. But people do give us suggestions sometimes. We've had stuff pass through that get integrated all the time. Sorry guys, I'm trying to smash through these questions as quick as possible. How does the camera-centric rendering actually work? As in, how do you handle the high precision simulation? Okay, so this is a little bit my idea. So my idea was the camera is always at 0, and because I'm really lazy, I just wanted to push the imprecision out to infinity. So if the camera's always at 0, and our simulation is always done with doubles, which it is, the enterprise team wrote us a special version of system.numerics that's powered based on doubles, so that's super handy.
That's super cool.
And that means we don't have to do a bunch of translation and stuff like that. So there are some changes that we're making. So we are bringing in a near and far camera. If Stefan actually zooms in a bit, you'll see some clipping. It's surprising how well it works. Like, it's worked way better than I expected. We will be layering in a near camera to handle the nearest 50 meters or whatever, but realistically that's more modest change. We don't have to do any reinterpretation with that. So yeah, the camera centric rendering is really everything is relative to everything else. I believe that introducing scenes into game development has been a terrible, terrible price paid. So there's no scene in KSA. There's no common reference. Everything is only referenced based on everything else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the camera-centric reference is the correct way to do it. The way KSP did floating origin, with the floating origin moving as you got far away from the origin, and then the Kraken's Bane that did that to absorb the velocity, that was all to get around limitations imposed by Unity and physics themselves, which forced you to work in single precision. So you had to do that kind of thing just to get around it, and it's like not having to deal with those things. You can just do it the simplest possible way, which is just to keep the camera at the origin, and everything else floats in relation to the camera by definition, right?
Right.
In the interest
And,
of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And it's all double. So I think in the last stream, I even went out on a limb and said there won't be a Kraken. Well, no, we haven't got one yet. I don't think, even when we bring in more physics, because we're doubles because of the way we're working. It's, yeah.
And everything's
Bold
relative to
statements.
everything else. Too.
Bold statements. I like bold statements, right?
I think a lot of people get hung up on the unit you're using to refer to something, but that unit matters in terms of what it's relative to. So if you're using a double to describe something that's relative to, say, the sun, that's fine as long as you're within a vaguely solar system value. You can still use that relative to something else as long as your sort of chain of relative has the correct precision. I also think you don't solve precision problems by making everything massive precision. That causes you problems with multiplayer and memory and serialization and a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to jump forward in some of the questions, so because in our system, some of the team had put up thingies, so we'll have to tick these off. Someone said, will there be scripting like the KOS mod and KSP or the IC scripting in Stationeers? Absolutely. So I'm a massive fan of KOS, a huge fan of it. I want to do that. I want to make sure what we do doesn't stomp there being awesome mods like KOS. So we'll layer stuff in and then people can make their own sort of compilers and add their own languages to the game. So when we add these kind of features, I don't want them to extinguish the amazing creativity of the community, if that makes sense. So yeah. We'll add in definitely that kind of stuff. That'll work in really well with Stefan's work, with the fact that physics can happen even if you're not looking at the vehicle. You could be miles away. You could have a KOS script that's timing a burn at a specific time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited about the ability to basically have, like, the one thing that I think we should do is have the ability for people's scripts to run on the physics timeline, and not just on the frame timeline. Exactly.
What I am interested in is the tools that will make mods or help make them. Can we expect anything like that, like mod tools? Yes, although I do think the best people to do a lot of modding tools is actually the community. So we should build the data structures and stuff like that. I think it's bad if a lot of stuff gets reliant on developer tools. Look at space engineers and stuff like that. Like when I run a space engineer server, I was using community generated tools to run it. So I think that we should, if we're making these for what I call forever games, we should set everything up so that things can be clipped in and out. This is another reason why I don't like Steam. Sure, you implement Steam's API, but if Steam goes down, the whole API gets broken and it's very difficult to clip something else in its place. So I want to make sure that KSA can outlive me, can outlive the studio, and stuff like that. So I think, yes, we'll make tools to do different things, but those tools should be able to be replaced once the studio and me and everyone else is dead. That got a bit dark, but... will there be radio... Oh, wait. I'll go to the next one. On a multi-monitor setup, will it be possible to have different menus screens on different monitors, like a map view on one? We don't have it 100% in, yes, but yes. that's actually something explicitly that we've done early versions of with Brutal. Brutal can actually open multiple application windows. You won't be able to have MGUI spread across 2 windows. So like that one window will have to be in one window or another. Sorry, oh my gosh, my terminology is getting wrong. Say that statistics widget in the top left there of Stefan, that would have to be on one application window, not half on one and half on another, if that makes sense. You could have it on both of them, but you couldn't have half and half. So that will be really cool for if people want to build simulators and all of stuff like that. You'll actually see that fairly soon. I don't know if Chris is here. He's looked at it before. Is Chris here? No, he's hiding somewhere. How expensive is KSA to develop? Very expensive. Actually, I think it's our second largest expensive project at the studio at the moment. Is that correct, Dylan? Can you remember? I remember Stephen saying something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are largely funding. I just think it's really important. This is why I haven't liked to go in and shell a whole bunch of stuff. I think the idea is to try and deliver on my aim to try and make the game completely free and try different stuff. I do think that we shouldn't be asking for community contributions until we have an actual build playable. There's just been too much that's gone wrong in these spaces. Definitely, I would say please support developers you like, especially developers like Felipe, who doesn't get enough credit in the industry. Hopefully we get good ways of people able to support those people directly. That includes third-party developers like Lynx and Blackrack, and it includes content creators. It's extremely difficult in this environment here. You get a lot of big companies getting a lot of money. It's very hard for those content creators, Shadow Zone, EJ, stuff like that. So you really do, I know, like and subscribe is super important. And if we want to make a good community going forward, we really need independent voices like EJ, Shadow Zone, all the other content creators, and independent third-party developers who will live long after the studio and me. It got dark again. After we do the community funding, I also want to increase some of our compensation for some of our team members a bit too. I think we do pay reasonably well, but I think for games like this, I think we want to do even better. Someone said, how can we support you? I guess that kind of matches in with that. I definitely think this project succeeds if we try new stuff. So have an open mind, be skeptical. The proof is not in the pudding, but in the eating. I think support, and we want independent voices. That's important. If you think about DayZ mod, how it was really good, it was the development team being honest about where the project's at, being honest about what we will and won't do and why. And then supporting those content creators. And then, look, if you do like what we're doing when we do the alpha, help us try and do this contribution model. Did anyone else have anything to add? This has just been a massive Dean rant.
No, there's...
Sorry.
Go.
I was going to say, everyone, tell your friends about it, get them in the Discord. Anyone who you think might be interested in this, your guys, connections are really, really valuable. So if you have people who you go, they're going to love this, get them along to the next one of these so they can ask their questions too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Spread the word. That's probably the way you can best help us at the moment.
And support third-party developers, support content creators. I really can't stress that enough. And then support developers like Felipe and us, I think too. But I think Felipe's we're bringing Felipe in, hopefully under our wing, making Brutal available to Felipe, and we want to support Felipe in his next games as well. Definitely check out Kit Hack. But the more you can directly support these developers, the better. Maybe we should introduce Felipe, Harvester, the creator of KSP. Someone just added me saying, who's Felipe?
I saw that too. Like, is that maybe not clear? Yeah. Yeah, that's me.
There's a lot of lols now. What's the next goal currently? Actually, that was when I knew that I'd really like Stefan when he joined our first steering group and was basically like, "What's your milestones?" So we do a weekly steering group. They're a little bit more obvious once the products come out because things become a bit easier. So we're still heading towards our like a dual milestone. So we have like Universe Simulator and kind of Yeet Around the Solar System Simulator. So we were trying to do, okay, you can go anywhere in the solar system and look at stuff and things like that. That we've done. That milestone is complete, and we're just trying to make it look prettier. And the milestone we're really focused on now has been what Jamie and Stefan have been focused on, which is the physics side of it. I think the next area for that beyond that, I don't think this is controversial, but we haven't really confirmed it in the steering group, is parts. And that will actually start with a part builder, which is not a ship builder, but actually allowing you to build the parts using very heavily, basically pulling out our instanced rendering. So it's really more about rendering. And that will lead into our vehicle builder, which I think we will lean heavily on Harvester Felipe, who's, I think one of the most knowledgeable in the industry about how to do that. But before we do that, we want to get the part building, how you actually construct the sub parts first, and that will just allow us to sort of dip our feet into it.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Like being able to construct the parts themselves, like it would construct like it reminds me like of a really old, like I'm old. Okay, so this was one of the first things that I've seen like in all of games. But I remember getting SimCity 2000 was one of the first games I got, and I got the special edition CD-ROM, and it came with. Sorry about the barking. It's just But anyway. So I got them SimCity 2000 on a CD-ROM, like one of the first games I ever got, and it came with something called Skirk, called the SimCity Urban Renewal Kit, and it was a tool that let you make your own buildings. Sorry.
I remember this tool. That's crazy.
Right? And you could paint your own like tiles for custom buildings.
Did anyone else want to do any questions that we've posted in the chat that haven't been answered? They want to
I was just going to add, I had commented in the chat before, we have saved out a bunch of those questions, so I think even the ones that we haven't been able to address in this time, we'll go back through and update the FAQ and try and make sure there's a documented answer for.
Did we want to bring in, and this might be super inappropriate, did Shadowzone or EJ or anyone else from the Veterans channel, did you guys want to come in and ask us questions or anything like that? Because they might have a more specific focus or something. If you just at us, or they can request, right? I haven't used these stages before. I can't actually even bring up the thing. It's all changed.
Check permissions.
How do I do this? Here we go. So I think, do they put their hand up or something? Is that how it works?
I think they need permissions to, hold on, I'm just checking.
You can right click on them and invite them to speak. If you right click on
here we go, Shadowzone.
Yeah, I was at Shadowzone now.
Speak. Oh, well, yeah. I didn't want to throw them in unless they want to.
Okay, yeah. They're just on an invite. They want to accept it, yeah.
And EJ, welcome as well. Just any questions. Again, kind of like I posted in the announcement, I really have this belief that a pilot should always be told the condition of their aircraft, so we're happy to take questions pretty much about anything. There was a lot of really good questions we've pushed through too, just in the interest of time. I don't know, have we added the people?
I did see in Shadowzone's Discord, he said that it was out of his time zone, so I don't know if he's going to be...
True, yes.
He might be too far in the future or the past.
He does have his hand up now actually in the audience. So someone who's got permissions wanted to add him, and he's got his hand up. I think he's
I
requesting.
did invite.
He's
him
got
to
a he's
speak.
yeah he's got an invite there. EJ's in, but he's probably panicked trying to work out his microphone settings based off his face on the stream.
That's not true at all, man.
Okay.
So yeah, open for you guys. And again, you don't have to ask questions if you don't want. I didn't want to put anybody on the spot. Did we lose EJ?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh no, you're here. Got it.
Dude, you guys covered a lot of ground. I'm just trying to collect. I'm collecting my thoughts over here, which is why I'm quiet. Just give me a moment.
There is one question here while he figures out what he wants to ask. Will there be anything like Mohole in KSA? Do you even know what Mohole was? Or
The
Mohole?
hole
I
in the
know
ground.
Moho.
And,
Yeah,
on
the-
Moho.
The bug that evolved.
Planets. I think, look, there's so many people that know so many awesome things. Just if you look at a bunch of the community mods, that's why many of the mods I don't consider to be mods. I consider them to be add-ons. They're essentially a third-party developer doing amazing work, which is why we've gone to developers like BlackRack and Lynx and that. To say, hey, you've done all this work in this area, over a decade in some cases. Can we, hire you and get your support on the project? Lynx, you're connected to a lot of the community members, and actually have recommended some people we talk to team-wise. Did you want to address the question around Moho?
I think the question was about the Mohole specifically, the
mapping bug around the pole, right?
Yeah, the anomaly
yeah.
at the North Pole.
Sorry, this is so outside of my wheelhouse. I definitely said it wrong.
That was a very diplomatic way of saying that I'm an idiot and can't listen.
So
well, you started, so you can address it.
What, me? Oh, I've got to address it now. Fair enough. Well, so it's caused by the UVs for the planet wrapping around to the South Pole, and the South Pole and North Pole are so differently. They've got such different altitudes that it causes that big difference. But because I'm going to be heavily involved with the terrain, we'll see what we can do about like Easter eggs like that. I'm sure we'll be able to put some in.
Sure, we'll be able to do something. Not committing to anything, but yeah.
Yeah.
I know how much people love caves and holes to hide in, so I'm sure we'll be able to figure something out.
All right, hey, Dean, I got something I think that wasn't covered here. A lot of folks have been asking over on the Twitch side of things, like and what you guys got here looks amazing, by the way. Like, I don't mean to blow smoke up your tail like publicly, right? But it looks really good. What's the plan with like Arrow and stuff like that, and then launch sites? What do we? Do you guys have a roadmap for that at all?
We haven't had a roadmap. There's a lot of opinions there. We had some early discussions from it. I'm a massive fan of data, like doing stuff in data. So we're trying to, that you saw the early location work. I want to see you be able to even place your own launch sites and stuff like that and actually have a lot more agency from it. I'm also a massive fan personally of aeronautics. And actually that was something we talked about with you early on, Stefan, right? Like, and I think you're very keen on looking at that as well. So we want like the aeronautics phase and in general to be a massive part of the game leading up to getting things in space. Did you want to speak to any of that, Stefan?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm, as Dean said, we talked about it early on, and I'm a huge aerodynamics, like computational aerodynamics nerd. Not that I'm a professional, just as someone who's been around those people and really enjoyed learning about it. So I'm really excited to do some cool stuff with aerodynamics. I think will be a little bit different from what you normally get from games, and hopefully we'll get some pretty cool plane stuff going on, and particularly reentry stuff is where I really like it. I like seeing very exciting aerodynamic reentries. So we'll try and get all that stuff in.
Yeah, let's see where we go. Like, I know people are going to go, oh, we want Ferrum Aerospace and all those other cool mods from KSP. Look, we're starting from first principles on everything, so we sort of look at it and go, well, what does that give us? What kind of gameplay will that present? Is that best left for a mod, and so on?
I definitely see aeronautics as being a really important part of progression. I like the RP1 mods and stuff like that. I really like that sense of progression.
I'm a real RSS nerd myself, and I really like the idea of, you start off by sending unmanned pods before you send actual characters, whatever they happen to be. Green men or normal people or kittens, who knows? But
I also really want us to show off all the different people involved. So it's not just Jeb and the crew and the capsule, but the scientists, the engineers, all that kind of stuff behind it. So that's something I'm pretty big on.
Actually, something that you and I, Dean, have talked about right back at the start that I think we're pretty keen on is like actually having more of a connection with the characters. So not just having those 4 heroes, but characters have to
started. Yeah.
Character. I'm going to start you now. I'm going to start him now. Characters 100%. Have to have training, right? They have to be trained. They have to. They get rewards. They get awards given to them.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite mods for KSP is actually, it's called Final Frontier, which is a ribbon-based thing, and very big on it. So I know we got off topic a bit here, but I think EJ, I think a lot of it relates to progression. That aeronautics is such an important part of the history. So my favorite sort of vehicle at all ever is X-15. So and that feeling, I'm getting little goosebumps now. So one of our key pillars is wonder, right? But that feeling of doing a suborbital space flight and the lead up to that through aircraft, I think is going to be vital. When I play KSP, I do little missions where I send my Kerbals to the North Pole and I set up a little base to test out all my progression and stuff like that. I see that as being crucial. Hopefully you'll actually see some of that pretty soon. If Stefan, he's so lazy, he's not. But yeah.
Hey, Dean, I actually had one more question. Mm-hmm. I'm obligated to ask this question just because of how I play KSP. But what about ground service equipment? Any plans for anything like that?
I was literally just to talk about how when you are building stuff, you're moving stuff around. So that's we want to have you to have quite a bit of agency over how. So we've talked a bit about progression. Of you kind of getting to scope your space agency and how you want it to grow, maybe by the kind of deals you do. So you might say, be able to, accept commercial goals or accept goals from governments about how you want your space program to grow. But then also the agency that you have over where your launch sites are, how you move stuff around. Part of that is about why we try and move so much stuff onto a thread and why we try not to have external APIs like physics and that doing everything, so we can really slot stuff in. And actually, I think similar to how we're splitting out parts from being this thing that's hard-coded. So one of the first things we're doing is having a part editor, which actually allows you to make parts. I don't think that's a feature that will be used by every player, but I could see someone like you on stream going in and actually making your own part standard and maybe having fuel connectors that connect at a different line compared to, say, the part thing, to build these specialty parts that do specifically what you want, in the same way as you build vehicles to assemble your vehicles and stuff like that. I've probably butchered that answer a bit, but that's definitely a focus of how we're trying to build this. I don't think we expect that every player will engage with it, but there's actually often a bit of a union of it becomes easier for us to author and render content if we split this stuff out.
Cool,
that was a rambling answer, but
no, dude, I'm here for it. I don't know about anybody else here. We're here for it, man. Everybody's here because we're all space nerds. Yeah. It's totally fine. Please rant more.
I think there is a definite union between the complexity of tools and authoring. Or agency, rather than complexity, I'll say agency around tools and authoring to do various things, and simplicity at the data level, and that's what we've tried to stick heavily towards. Did anyone else?
Dean, one more thing.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
My chat's bugging me about boats and buoyancy, dude. Any word on that one, guys?
Yeah, so we might actually have a new team member soon who is actually going to look at water in terms of rendering. So the studio has actually done buoyancy many times. Definitely will be a thing. And depending on who we get as team members, how far, I'll put a pun in, how deep we're able to go with that mechanic will sort of depend. There's actually a really cool mod for KSP that goes under the water quite a bit. That will really depend, I think, on how much we fill the team out and stuff like that. But I mean, a buoyancy of some description, 100%.
We want things to actually float and interact with the water at least. That's a minimum. Because we don't want it like another so-called game where the rocket capsule kind of just floated there and the waves totally didn't interact with it. But anyway, let's not talk about that.
I sent Shadowzone another invite, but yes, he may be asleep.
I think the hand up. Yeah. Anyway, it was I think we've probably got time for one more question, or you could maybe just round off just saying what the team's up to at the moment. Maybe each person's team what they're working towards. That was a question earlier, and it seems like a nice way to round it out.
Do you want to start, Jamie? You're first on the list.
I'm currently just trying to clean up that maneuver planning stuff. And once that's done, I think, it's like working alongside with Stefan to see where he's up to, because ultimately we're trying to work towards something we can give people to start playing with. And I think we set our goal there to be like, I want to be able to land on the ground. I want to be able to fly up into space and fly through space, which we can do now. So we're just kind of missing ground collision, a bit of atmospheric physics, I think. So it'll be whatever's still required there. But then I think we're moving into parts land, I think, next. After that, I think. Dean can say yes or no on that, but I think so. Somewhere along those lines is where I'll be going.
Part editor is something.
Yeah, we're going to do that too. That's right. And we've already talked about having that as an actual in-game tool so that third-party developers, aka modders, can also build their mod parts inside the game just as we will. So the tooling we are planning to be part of the game.
Hey, real quick, when you say like a part editor, are you talking about like making fuel tanks? Are we talking about making rocket engines? What or is it all encompassing?
So if you imagine, we'll make the sub parts. So if you take the Apollo service module, it has a whole bunch of little different parts, like little round fuel tanks. I mean, I really like universal storage and stuff like that. So if you think about it like that, we start off with these sub parts, and by default, we give you a game with a whole bunch of parts that we've made from sub parts ourselves. But there's nothing stopping you from then clicking a button and going through and making your own sub parts or sub part variations yourself that you can bring back in. And again, it's not something I think that every player will engage with, because most people just like to build a stack and throw it into orbit.
Yeah.
But definitely, I think that a lot of people might want to get in and build their own sub parts. So if you imagine a cylinder part is made up of a bunch of different tanks and even pipes that connect them, and then connectors that tell them how to connect to other parts. We'll build a base level of all of those, but there's nothing stopping you going in and being able to make your own versions of them. It gives us a bunch of benefits from rendering, because basically we can batch render all that stuff.
Yeah, the idea there, EJ, would be like your fuel tank. You've just got the fuselage as a sub part, and then you've got, the different tanks inside for the different components of your fuel, and then you connect them together to say that they mix together here and here, and then this end of the tank and this end of the tank or whatever is where I can connect a fuel hose to pass fuel from this part to another kind of thing. And that's our current idea. Yeah. So it's much different to KSP.
Fluid management via
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was going to say it's very similar. It sounds very similar to something that GitHub has, which is in the SDK. There's a bunch of like Unity tools for you to set up the part prefabs, right? So basically, like if you think of that as part of the game, like a more kind of like advanced player type tool in the game. You basically get to put together your own arrangement of things that the game already has, but you get to decide like how those things are connected or arranged in space, like for a certain part. So if you want like there's maybe like a little landing lag part, and you want one that's maybe like slightly longer or like swings a different way, like that kind of thing that doesn't require any functional change to happen. It's just a different configuration, right? It's something that would be part normally of a SDK tool, but like in a game like this where there's no engine to speak of, it has to be implemented, like, and it might as well be implemented into the game itself. Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong as well. Like even that basic leg part, maybe that's a like foundation piece that you're can use in that part editor. But then you would be able to go and define a new one in XML. So outside of the part editor, you might be able to define a new base part. Well, you will be able to define a new base part just in the game data and reference a mesh and be like, cool, this is a part. And now that's now available in the parts editor as well. So, obviously it will have its limitations about like what you can say that's going to do, but that's, everything in the game will, the goal is it's all data driven. So.
Dudes, I got one more question. Will the part editor allow for animatable parts like robotic arms, hydraulics, landing gear, stuff like that?
Definitely, yeah.
Wouldn't be a game that EJ would play unless it had that, right?
I got to find a way to break it, Repo. You know this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we want to go pretty crazy with that, I think. I'm massively into KOS and stuff like that. I do think that you have to make some concessions. I'm not a big fan of using, say, physics for everything. That's why I want to, sometimes it's better to just translate stuff and things like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Haley's comment.
Okay, so that's a good cover of what JPL's up to. What are you working on at the moment, Stefan?
Actually, I'll go next before Stefan goes.
Okay, you go. No, you go. Fine.
I'm looking at integrating terrain shadows, and I'm also working with Brutal to get our font rescaling as you select the different font levels. There was an error with how we're importing the font config pointers, and also getting terrain self-shadowing in.
I'm working on basically the physics required to actually do a launch and landing. So there are a couple of things that come before that, sort of prerequisites, but then we'll basically to complete our first milestone that's sort of vaguely playable as a game, we need to be able to do a full mission. So that's what I'll be doing.
Somebody said it's Scrum time now. Yeah.
You don't say that, Werner, here. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
Lynx, did you want to talk about what you're looking at doing?
Sure. I'm looking into biome-based terrain texture blending right now. We're looking for something that's really performant and also versatile and easy for the artists. And a lot of the time, you can't have all three. So some things are going to be, well, not committing to anything, but right now, with one of the current approaches that I've been looking into, we'll be generating some of these masks that, well, artists can come in and tweak them at the end, but I'm trying to simplify the process a lot. But the focus is on performance, and after that, we might look into like terrain tessellation to get that really good up close detail, and then tiling height maps for more. I mean, the terrain mesh is so detailed; it would be a real shame not to use all of it. So, we'll try and get some really good quality height maps in there as well, and the best way to do that is probably through tiling.
Did we cover off on anyone? I've been distracted by playing with Jupiter, which is a common occurrence.
Oh, I can see a moon there. That's really cool.
Hey, quit playing with your moons, Dean.
I play
the
with
shadow of a moon
all the time.
All right, I think that's everyone. You want to give us a nice sign off, Dean?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining into it. Had a lot of progress since the last time we did the last one. I'll be pretty excited for the next one. Please remember to support the third-party developers, support the content creators particularly. And yeah, the proof is not in the pudding but the eating.
Someone asked when's the next one. That's probably a good last question.
Yeah, I don't think we should just do them because they're a big kerfuffle for everybody. I don't think we should just do them just because. So I think when we feel like there's a bunch of good stuff to show off, maybe vehicles, stuff like that. Who knows? To be honest, we might actually, by the time we do the next one, we might actually have the alpha build available.
Yeah, I guess a good way to think about it is like we'll say something when there is something to be said rather than saying something because we feel like we have to say something.
Yes, that's a really good summary. Yeah.
As speaking from the community side of things, just don't show off something unless you guys got something to show. The community we're waiting for it. We'll be patient. Take your time and do it right. It's all good. We got nothing but time.
Ain't that the truth? Cool. Oh, I also, a goal, if anybody works at SpaceX or somewhere, I actually want to make KSA available to people for free and then actually live stream a launch inside the game. I'm working towards trying to do that. I've had a couple of contacts with different places that I might be able to get data on, but basically you'd be able to like virtually watch the rocket take off. So if anybody knows anybody, get in touch. So when we do the first, kind of like Fortnite. So if anybody knows anybody, send them my way. It'll be completely free. And we could do that now. We could literally do that now. I just need the telemetry, and the telemetry could have a lag. I was thinking about this. It could be like the early days of GPS because we'll just be lerping. So I just need we can even make the 3D models. We've got the people. We can make the 3D models. We just need the telemetry stream.
So I think funny you should mention that because I heard from somebody just this week from Rogue Space Systems. They got in touch with me because they wanted to ask me to be able to do something, and I just heard back a couple of days ago. They've put up a little CubeSat in orbit, and it sends out a radio beacon, and as part of that radio beacon, every now and then, it plays a MIDI track, which just so happens to be the KSP theme now. I immediately got nerd sniped by that. And so yes, the KSP theme is now currently playing in orbit. I'm going to post later a link to, there's a site that you can like see there's a network of crowdsourced like observations, like stations, like radio receivers, and you can see like when it flies by any of them, they pick it up and you can download the audio and everything. It's super cool. I did compose that song. That was me. I didn't arrange it, but the satellite is OTP2 from Rogue Space System. I don't think it's on the Celeste track database yet. It's got a provisional NORAD identification yet.
Someone said in chat, should I inform the German Chancellor about KSA?
Wait.
Anyway, we have to go celebrate.
I was saying like the TLE data that you can use to like place something in orbit is easy enough to pick up, and it converts like one-to-one to Keplerian elements. So it wouldn't be very difficult at all to like find that data. It's not full telemetry, but there's probably more. And
I'd love to do it for an actual launch, though.
Yeah.
For you to be able to watch it. So that's a goal. That's something I want to try and have happen soon.
That would be super cool.
I think that would show off kind of a lot of stuff nicely without us having to do a bunch of stuff. Cool.
But yeah, I just wanted to mention it because I stumbled onto this whole like world and like little like community of people who track satellites by radio observatories, and there's this whole crowdsourced thing happening. So it might be a way to it might be something to look at, because there might be actually like a whole human subculture there that we could tap into, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Someone asked as well, could the next town hall be on a Friday? It is actually Friday for us. So I can't I can't for New Zealanders and Australians, unfortunately.
Oh, you people from the future.
So sorry, but we're in the future, and so that would be our Saturday if you wanted it on your Friday. And I'm afraid I'm doing.
And we're pretty big about having our team members have time off. Is pretty important.
Weekends are sacrilege. That's it.
All right.
Anyway,
no, I'm
thank you,
more
everybody. We need to go celebrate. Can we get some more cake in the chat for Simon? He's going to go have cake. Definitely go check out Simon's recent work on stationeers, which hopefully he'll be bringing to KSA on terrain. Has just been fantastic at helping us clean that project up and tidy it up. So we're pretty excited as well to have Simon and some of the other team members like Matt. Matty's here. Who will be helping us do some awesome sound stuff and stuff in general. So we've got a bunch of really cool team members that will be flowing on to KSA soon, including Peter. Do you want to say anything, Matt?
I haven't done anything on KSA yet, but when I do, I will say something.
You're ready, though. Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, cool.
And huge thank you to all the team members, too. It's been so awesome to see all our team members doing awesome stuff. I don't actually know. I don't actually know how to end this.
Oh, I never know how to end these things either.
Okay, fellas, I got you. What kind of cake are you serving? And we can end on that bombshell.
I believe it carrot cake. Is that right, Simon?
I don't really like cake. I only like two types of cake: cheesecake and carrot cake with a lot of cream cheese icing. So we got the carrot cake.
My guy. All right. Sweet.
Amazing.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end.
Yes. Thank you, Rob.
I think Damien said he technically doesn't know how to end this.
No, I found
I think we need to play the Top Gear soundtrack now, right?
Yeah.
After the bombshell.
Yeah,
I don't think we have Amazon Prime lawyer money.
Oh, yeah,
well,
maybe not.
You guys can just imagine it. You can just imagine the theme playing, and we can just leave.
Yeah, leave before they make me sing it.
For content creators, there is a Google Drive, and I'm dumping any source videos we do in there so that people don't have to download them off Discord. So I'll keep mentioning that too. And content creators are welcome to use any of this stuff in any way in any of their stuff. They don't have to attribute or link to anything and stuff like that. So huge thanks to all the work from our content creators. Keep doing your awesome work. Thank you, everybody. Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.